They sent an alien operative to seduce and sabotage Earth's top general. The mission was flawless until she discovered she was pregnant. But how could that even be possible? Their species were supposed to be completely incompatible. Why has this terrifying truth been buried for thousands of years? And could this hybrid child be the key to ending a war that's gone on for far too long? All eyes locked on her the moment the airlock doors of the Serathi mothership began to slide open. HFYLari stepped through, still carrying herself with the proud, precise poise of an elite operative, but something had clearly changed. Beneath her signature silver-violet Serathi battle armor, her belly was unmistakably swollen. She was pregnant, an impossible condition for a spy on assignment, mission report complete. Her voice cut through the gleaming metallic room like a blade. Standing before her was Commander Vortax, the one who had personally deployed her on the classified mission. He struggled to maintain the expressionless mask typical of their species, but his eyes gave him away. Shock, disgust, and worse than either, bitter disappointment. This wasn't in the final report. Vortax's eyes never left her abdomen. Two guards stepped forward, flanking her like her presence alone had become a threat. "I came to report in person," HFYLari said coolly, showing no sign of fear, despite the sharp turn in atmosphere. Everything happened fast after that. She was taken to medical containment. Serathi scanners and genetic analyzers ran their full suite of tests, and the result sent even their most seasoned scientists into stunned silence. The fetus carried human DNA. No, that's not possible," whispered Dr. Cora Lee, geneticist, eyes locked on the screen. "Serathi and human genomes can't integrate. We've studied this for centuries. It has to be an error." "There is no error." HFYLari met the scientist's gaze head-on. "This child is mine, and it belongs to General Marcus Hale of Earth's planetary defense." The room erupted in a wave of hushed gasps. The name of the enemy, the man she had been sent to seduce, to undermine, to strip of secrets. And now, she carried his child. HFYLari could practically hear the grinding of jaws around her as Serathi officers processed the betrayal. It was only a matter of time before they branded her a traitor. And the next thing she knew, she was standing in a stark white detention chamber. No questions, no formal hearing, only the cold, wordless contempt on Vortax's face as he turned his back on her. The guards shoved her inside. The pressure door slammed shut, but HFYLari didn't panic. She didn't beg, she didn't scream. She smiled just a little. Her hand slid over her stomach where a child of two worlds quietly grew. "We're exactly where we need to be," she whispered. No one understood. No one knew. She wasn't a fugitive, dragged back in chains. She wasn't a traitor, cornered with nowhere to run. The truth was, HFYLari had come back of her own free will, executing a plan that had been calculated down to the last detail. She needed to be here at the heart of Serathi power, so she could deliver the one message both civilizations had to hear, a message only the child inside her could make real. While the officers scrambled to handle the HFYLari situation, they never realized this was exactly what she wanted. Now she was at the core of the mothership, within reach of the Serathi's global broadcast array, a place no message could be silenced. HFYLari sat on the cold, sterile cot. Quietly, she reached up and pulled a tiny device from beneath her dark, silken hair, one the Serathi had never detected. It wasn't theirs. It was human tech, cloaked invisible to Serathi sensors, a gift from Marcus himself before she left. "You were right, Marcus," she whispered. "They reacted exactly the way you said they would, and now we're in position to change everything." She clenched the device in her hand. This wasn't the story of a failed operative. This was the story of a woman carrying the future of two worlds, and she had just returned to the one place that needed her most. 6 months earlier, HFYLari stood tall, shoulders rigid, before the Serathi High Strategic Council. The massive oval chamber was engineered to intimidate. Every word echoed sharply, every corner drenched in cold, sterile light. There was no room for weakness here, no room for doubt. Agent HFYLari intoned. Supreme Commander Vexus, his gravelly voice carrying authority forged in countless battles. "This mission is critical to the future of the Serathi Alliance. Our full-scale invasion is being obstructed by one man, General Marcus Hale." A towering screen came to life behind him, displaying a rugged human male in his mid-40s. Salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes, stern expression, a face carved by war, but still holding a rare sense of calm. Hale is Earth's most formidable military strategist. Vexus continued. He designed the Aegis defense grid, the only barrier standing between us and the total annihilation of that primitive species. Yulari studied the image, taking in every detail. She'd memorized his file 100 times, widowed, no children, entire life devoted to military service. Revered by his troops, nearly worshipped, a real threat, your mission. Vexus said, voice tightening, is to infiltrate Earth's military infrastructure, get close to Hale and extract intel on Aegis's weak points. Use any means necessary, any means. Yulari repeated, fully understanding what that implied. She'd been trained to use every tool: seduction, deception, psychological warfare, even cruelty. I'll see it through. This wasn't her first infiltration op, but it was the first time they were sending her alone, a mark of respect, a personal honor. You'll be fully reconstructed to pass as human, said Dr. Cora, stepping forward, the latest genome converter, undetectable by Earth's tech. You have 6 months to complete the mission, barked Vortax, her direct commander. Once we have the data, we launch the offensive? Yulari nodded, her pulse quickening. She would help deliver Serathi's final victory, a triumph centuries in the making. Humanity deserved extinction, a self-destructive inferior species, unworthy of civilized space. At least that's what she'd been taught since birth. 3 months in, yo, like art? Marcus Hale asked casually as he walked up behind her. Yulari, now known as Elena Wright, a freshly appointed intel analyst, turned just a hint as startled. She had been staring at a painting on the wall of Marcus' office, a field of wildflowers under a golden sunset. Yes, sir, she answered, her tone perfectly modulated, warm but not familiar. I'm just surprised to see it here, I thought. Generals preferred medals and weapons on display. Marcus smiled. A rare, gentle curve of his lips that softened the ever-present weight on his face. War's taken up enough of my life. Elena, sometimes I need a reminder of what I'm fighting for. The answer caught her off guard. For months, she deployed every technique in her arsenal to gain Marcus's trust, to draw closer, build rapport. She'd analyzed his every word, every decision, and still, Kato, he kept surprising her. He wasn't the arrogant brute she'd expected. Strict, yes, but hardest on himself. And it wasn't bloodlust that drove him. It was something else, something deeper. Who painted this, sir? She asked gently, keeping the moment alive. My wife, Marcus said quietly. She died 7 years ago. First wave of the invasion. She was a painter. Always believed beauty could save the world, even when the world was falling apart. Yulari felt her throat tighten. She'd been taught that humans were selfish, violent, driven only by greed and destruction. But this was grief, real grief. Love that lingered, emotions. Serathi culture prided itself on having evolved beyond. That night, for the first time, Yulari did not send a full report back to command. She left out the personal conversation. Instead, she opened a locked, untraceable file, one completely disconnected from Serathi networks, and began to write. Day 94 on Earth. I'm starting to question everything I was taught about humans. Today, I watched a war general cry over a painting of wildflowers. What does that mean in the context of our universe? It was the first journal entry. More would follow. 5 months into the mission, Elena, I need you with me at the refugee camp in Sector 9. Marcus said, his tone urgent. There's a medical shortage. Yeah, and I want to assess it myself. Yulari, who now responded to Elena so instinctively she sometimes forgot her real name, nodded. This could be it. She'd gotten close to Marcus, but the Aegis system's core details still eluded her. Maybe this trip would change that, but what she witnessed changed everything. Inside a makeshift triage tent, Marcus knelt beside a little girl, maybe 8 years old, her eyes red and swollen from infection. Her name's Maya, whispered. A doctor lost both parents in last month's airstrike. She hasn't spoken since. Marcus gently took the child's tiny hand. Maya, my name is Marcus, he said softly. I promise I'll do everything I can to help you get better. The child stared blankly. Marcus looked to Yulari, eyes sharp with resolve. Elena. Call Central MedOps. I want a medevac chopper here in 30 minutes. We're moving all the children to the main hospital. But General A nearby officer protested. Protocol doesn't allow. I don't care about protocol, Marcus snapped. They're innocent. We couldn't save their parents, but we will save them. Yulari stood frozen. Back home, Serathi doctrine taught efficiency over empathy, maximize outcomes for the greatest number. Wasting resources on weak, non-contributing lives was irrational. But here was Marcus, holding a dying child like she was the only life that mattered. Something cracked open inside her. That night she wrote Day 152 on Earth. Today I watched the enemy break protocol to save children who had nothing to offer in return, not because it was strategic, but because it was right. For the first time, I'm asking myself, who are the real savages in this war? And for the first time, Yulari didn't send anything to Serathi Command. She sat alone in her apartment, staring out at the lights of a human city, and wondered, was her mission a lie? Was this war built on a lie, and most terrifying of all, was she? Winter had come, and with it, the 5th month of Yulari's mission. Now when she walked into Marcus' office, the tension was gone. No nerves, no caution, just a strange sense of belonging. I brought the latest reports from the refugee camps, General, she said, placing the file on his desk, but her eyes lingered on his face, drawn exhausted. You haven't been sleeping, have you? Marcus looked up, caught off guard by the personal question. Over the past few months, Elena had become his most trusted aide. Still, they'd kept their relationship strictly professional. 6 attacks in 7 days, he said, rubbing his face. They're probing the Aegis system for weaknesses. I can't afford to rest, when every second might decide the fate of millions. Yulari knew those attacks too well. She'd helped initiate them. Every report she filed, every data fragment she gathered, had been used to improve Serathi's strike strategies. At least, that's how it started. Lately, her reports had been vague, incomplete. She'd started omitting key intel, altering facts sometimes, even feeding Serathi false leads. Every action a betrayal of her mission. Of her people, you need rest, Yulari said, softer than she meant to. Even machines overheat without downtime. Marcus gave a tired smile. You're right, Elena, but tonight there's an emergency briefing with the Security Council. New intel suggests the Serathi are preparing for something big. Her heart skipped. She knew what he was talking about. It was the final strike, the one planned before she was ever deployed, but it hadn't been scheduled yet, which meant they were accelerating the plan. I'll update the analysis right away, she said, steadying her voice. Is there anything else you need? Marcus studied her for a long moment, then stood. Come with me, Elena. There's something I want to show you. They passed through multiple security doors, each requiring Marcus's biometric signature, until they reached a chamber buried deep underground. The true control room of the Aegis defense system. When the final door slid open, Yulari's breath caught. This was it, the mission's ultimate objective, the nerve center of Earth's planetary shield, and Marcus was leading her right into it. I've never brought anyone in here besides the original engineers, he said, guiding her past rows of terminals and glowing consoles. But I need you to understand exactly what we're up against. On the central display was a full 3D schematic of Aegis, satellites, ground stations, energy fields encircling the Earth. But what stunned Yulari wasn't the map. It was the numbers beside it. We're running out of power, Marcus said quietly. Every attack forces us to drain reserves. At this rate, if we take a full-scale hit, Aegis will only hold for 48 hours. Yulari stared at the screen. If she sent this information back, the Serathi would know exactly when to strike. They could wipe out humanity in less than 2 days. Why are you showing me this? She asked, her voice hoarse. Marcus turned to her, looked her dead in the eye. Because I trust you, Elena, and we need every sharp mind we've got if we want to survive. She felt like throwing up, Russ. The same word Serathi teachings mocked as weakness. Humans put their faith in others without guarantees, blind, irrational, vulnerable. And now that trust was being placed in her. A liar, a spy that night. Yulari sat at her terminal, hands trembling over the keyboard. The report was ready. Everything. Aegis's energy levels, vulnerabilities, the perfect time to strike. One click. That's all it would take. Mission complete, total success, but her finger never moved. Instead, she opened her secret journal and began to type, I can't send this report. Not because I can't, because I won't. Wiping out billions of lives isn't liberation. It's genocide. And we've become the very thing we claim to be fighting against. She deleted the real report, replaced it with decoy data, harmless details, and carefully seeded misinformation. Then she hit send. Moments later, she ran to the bathroom and vomited. She had betrayed her species. But in her heart, she knew she'd done the right thing. When the nausea passed, Yulari rinsed her face and looked in the mirror. And that's when she noticed something was wrong. Her eyes, still displaying the soft brown hue of her human disguise, now shimmered faintly speckled. with Serathi luminescence. Panic hit hard. She grabbed her emergency med kit, took a blood sample, and ran an analysis. The results stunned her. Cellular mutation detected, embryonic hybrid structure present. Immune system has accepted foreign genetic material. HFYLegendsOfZang collapsed to the floor. She was pregnant with a child carrying both human and Serathi DNA, something that should have been biologically impossible. Serathi operatives were engineered to be genetically incompatible with humans. There were safeguards to prevent contamination, but no science had predicted this. Her body was adapting, changing to sustain new life from both worlds. The next week was hell. By day, she stayed at Marcus's side gathering intel, but never passing on anything vital. By night, she battled waves of sickness and a paralyzing fear that Serathi Command would detect the changes in her autobiometric updates. And then in the second week, her nightmare arrived. A high-level encrypted message from the Nexus Core Serathi's central AI. Anomalous biological data detected in Agent HFYLegendsOfZang. Possible foreign contamination. Immediate return required for evaluation and purification. Purification. The words sent ice down her spine. They would remove the child. Cleanse her body, possibly dissect her as a failed prototype. But HFYLegendsOfZang wasn't the cold operative she used to be. She wouldn't follow orders. She'd return to Serathi, but on her own terms. That night, while Marcus was working late, HFYLegendsOfZang knocked on his door. When he let her in, she quietly closed it behind her and locked it. Elena. "What's going on?" he asked, noticing the tension in her face. "My name isn't Elena Wright," she said, voice shaking. "It's HFYLegendsOfZang. I'm a Serathi intelligence agent." Marcus froze, slowly stood. His hand edged toward the drawer where she knew he kept a firearm. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said quickly. "I'm here to warn you. The Serathi are launching their largest attack yet. In 3 days, they're coming for Aegis." Marcus didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at her, watching every twitch of her muscles, every flicker of her eyes. "Why should I believe you?" he asked. HFYLegendsOfZang took a deep breath, then placed her hand gently over her stomach. "Because I'm carrying our child. Something every piece of science says is impossible. They've summoned me back because they found anomalies in my biology. But I'm not going back to follow orders. I'm going back to show them proof. Proof that we are not natural enemies, no matter what they've preached for centuries." Marcus stared at her, betrayal and disbelief etched in his face. But slowly something else began to rise behind his eyes. "Wonder and hope, that's possible," he whispered. "It is," HFYLegendsOfZang said firmly. "And it's the only hope we have of stopping this war. But I need your help. I need real information about humanity, not to destroy you, but to show them we can coexist." The room fell into heavy silence. Then Marcus made the decision that would change the fate of 2 worlds. "Tell me what you need," he said, his voice once again firm, steady. "We don't have much time." 2 months after that fateful night in Marcus' office, HFYLegendsOfZang found herself in an impossible position. She had returned to Earth not as Elena Wright, not even as HFYLegendsOfZang the Serathi agent, but as a fugitive, a traitor to her people, and a secret ally to humanity. Her return to the Serathi mothership had gone exactly as planned. She'd surrendered willingly, carrying carefully prepared data and evidence. What she hadn't anticipated was the Council's reaction. Not just condemnation, not just exile, they deemed her a biological threat that had to be eradicated. Within hours of her escape, the Serathi had issued a galaxy-wide kill order. "All safety protocols are in place," Marcus said, as he pulled her out of the escape shuttle. "Local defense systems are activated. We've bought ourselves a few hours." HFYLegendsOfZang nodded, breathless, exhausted. Her stomach was now visibly swollen, the child growing faster than any model had predicted. "Time's running out," she gasped. "They know what I'm carrying. They'll accelerate the attack." Marcus pulled her into a tight embrace, something that would have once filled her with revulsion. But now it gave her something else entirely, a sense of safety. "We're ready for this," he whispered. "The car's waiting. We're going to see Kaylin Dalton Meyer," the name Marcus had mentioned countless times over the past few weeks, always with reverence, but never with detail. All HFYLegendsOfZang knew was that he was Earth's leading biologist. And in Marcus' words, our last hope. They drove through empty roads, heading for the edge of the city. With every mile, HFYLegendsOfZang grew more anxious. She could feel the child inside her, not just physically, but spiritually. A connection unlike anything she'd ever known. "We're here," Marcus said as the car stopped in front of an unassuming building in the middle of the forest. Kaylin's lab is underground, shielded by our strongest anti-surveillance systems. An advanced biometric scanner swept over them before the hidden door opened. Inside, a tall man with prematurely silver hair waited for them. Mid-40s, sharp-eyed hands trembling ever so slightly from years of precision work, Marcus he greeted. Then turned to Yllari, studying her. "And you must be Yllari? I've waited a long time to meet a real Serathi." There was something in his eyes that unsettled her. Not hatred, not fear, but something stranger, intimate, almost familiar. They descended into the lab through a hidden elevator down a corridor of steel and silence until they emerged into a massive underground chamber. State-of-the-art tech filled the room, more advanced than anything Yllari had seen. But what truly caught her eye were the samples, genetic material, some unmistakably Serathi. "These are Serathi cells," she said, staring in disbelief. "How did you get them?" Kaylin and Marcus exchanged a look. Kaylin sighed. "I think it's time you knew the truth, Yllari." He walked to a large screen and pulled up a DNA sequence. "This is my genome." Yllari examined the data. Her breath caught. "This can't be. This is a hybrid, Serathi and human." She looked at Kaylin, stunned. "Who are you?" "I'm the result of a Serathi infiltration mission." 43 years ago, he said calmly, "my mother Selenis was an agent just like you. She was sent to infiltrate Earth's space program. But instead, she fell in love with my father." To Richard Meyer, Yllari's legs buckled. Marcus quickly pulled over a chair for her. "They believe she died in an explosion," Kaylin continued, "but she survived, escaped, and I was born a year later. I've spent my entire life in hiding, studying what I am, a biological impossibility, or so they said. But how?" Yllari whispered. "How did I survive?" Kaylin smiled gently. "That's exactly what I've been researching." "And why Marcus brought you here?" He led them to another section of the lab, a chamber containing the most advanced bioscanners Yllari had ever seen. "I need to run a full analysis on you and the child," he said. "If my hypothesis is correct, we may have something more powerful than any shield or weapon, something that could end this war." The test began. For over an hour, Kaylin ran complex diagnostics. When the results began appearing on the monitor, his eyes lit up. "Just as I thought," he whispered almost to himself. "Serathi DNA isn't incompatible with human DNA. In fact, it adapts to it." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked, standing at Yllari's side. "It means Serathi DNA has a hidden trait. Biological translation," Kaylin explained, practically glowing with excitement. "Serathi evolved on a brutal world. Survival meant adapting. Over generations, their bodies developed the ability to interpret and recode foreign DNA. That's why I could conceive," Yllari murmured, realization dawning. "My body isn't rejecting human genes, it's learning from them." "Exactly," Kaylin nodded. "And your child isn't a freak anomaly. It's the result of a process Serathi biology is designed to make possible." Marcus frowned. "Then why haven't there been more hybrids besides you and this child?" "Because it requires one crucial factor," Kaylin said, turning to Yllari with deep understanding. "Willingness. The Serathi has to accept the human, not just physically, but emotionally. That connection triggers the biological adaptation." Yllari's face flushed. She had fallen for Marcus, something her people would never accept, something she hadn't wanted to admit even to herself. "There are old records," Kaylin added, pulling up ancient images and symbols, legends of star beings who mated with humans. "Not all myths. Some may be erased history, early encounters between our species, buried by the Serathi. They knew," Yllari breathed. "They knew we could create life together. They lied to us. They built our war on that lie." And that Marcus said vision suddenly clear as the key. "The entire Serathi war doctrine," Kaylin finished, "is built on the belief that we're biologically incompatible, that humanity is a contaminant. But if we can prove we're not, if we can show them this child exists, then their entire justification for war collapses," Marcus said. Yllari placed her hand on her belly, feeling the quiet pulsing life inside. "This child isn't just ours, it's hope for both our worlds. But how do we get that message to the Serathi?" Marcus asked, urgency rising. "They're already mobilizing. The invasion is imminent." Kaylin turned to the central console. "I've built a transmission system that can breach the Serathi's comms grid. With Yllari's help, we can broadcast everything. The DNA data, the scans, even a live message. Straight to every warship and colony they have. They won't believe it easily," Yllari warned. "They've been told for generations they're superior, that mixing with other species is corruption, That's why we need more than just numbers, Marcus said, a plan forming in his mind. We need a message they can't ignore. A message from someone who's lived both sides. Yulari and Marcus locked eyes, then turned to Kaylin. In that moment, three people born on opposite sides of a galaxy-wide war knew exactly what had to be done. Time was running out. The greatest battle in their history was just hours away. But for the first time, they had a weapon stronger than fleets, stronger than shields, stronger than fear, the truth. And as the Serathi strike fleet assembled above Earth, preparing for the final blow, a different kind of message was already being written. The reinforced glass of the underground lab shuddered as a distant explosion lit up the sky. The invasion had begun, and the monitor's red markers multiplied by the second. The Serathi fleet breaching Earth's upper atmosphere. Aegis is at full output, Marcus said tensely, eyes fixed on the tactical readout. But we both know it can't hold more than 48 hours under this kind of assault. Yulari stood, one hand cradling her swollen belly, eyes locked on the satellite feeds. Then we act now. It's now or never. Kaylin nodded and moved swiftly to the control panel. Transmission systems online. We're ready to broadcast to every Earth communication channel and override Serathi's networks. How can we be sure they'll even watch? Marcus asked, concern etched across his face. I encoded the signal with Nexus-level priority codes. Kaylin replied. Every Serathi system is hardwired to respond to it. It's reserved for extinction-level emergencies. This will get through. Yulari looked at Kaylin with newfound respect. You've learned so much about Serathi without ever meeting one, 43 years of studying in my own biology. Kaylin replied with a faint smile. Sometimes the ones outside history see it most clearly. Marcus moved beside Yulari, gently taking her hand. Are you sure you want to do this? Once your face goes out, everyone will know who you are, not just the Serathi, but all of Earth. Yulari squeezed his hand. I was born to disappear. Trained to stay in the shadows, leave no trace, but now I know sometimes the brightest light, it is the strongest weapon. They rushed to complete the final setup, a simple white backdrop, a secured broadcast rig, Kaylin behind the camera, Marcus at Yulari's side, two representatives of two civilizations, ready to tear down a wall that had stood for millennia. Broadcast in 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on Marcus' face, filled the frame, calm, firm, unwavering. I'm General Marcus Hale of Earth's Defense Forces. I speak now to both humanity and the Serathi. This war between our worlds has lasted far too long, built on one dangerous lie, that we are fundamentally incompatible, that peaceful coexistence is impossible. Today we present proof that this belief is false. The feed shifted to Kaylin, who calmly presented the scientific data, genetic comparisons, molecular imaging, the biological translation mechanisms inside Serathi DNA. I am Dr. Kaylin Meyer, he said, I am living proof. Born of a Serathi mother and a human father, I have lived in hiding for 43 years, but the time for silence is over. The world must know the truth. Then Yulari stepped forward. The camera caught her clearly, the curve of her belly unmistakable. A collective gasp echoed across both worlds. My name is Yulari, she said, voice steady despite her pounding heart. I am a Class A intelligence agent of the Serathi Alliance. I was sent to infiltrate Earth's defenses and prepare for its destruction. But what I found was something far greater. She placed her hand over her stomach. This child is mine, and General Marcus Hale's. A hybrid the Serathi claimed was biologically impossible. But clearly, it is not, and it's not a mutation or an accident. It is a natural outcome of something Serathi science has long denied. The camera zoomed slightly as her eyes locked on the lens. I didn't fail my mission. I simply uncovered a deeper truth, that we are not natural enemies. We are compatible. We can coexist. We can become more together. She knew Vexus was watching the Serathi Council. Millions across both civilizations. Serathi history has not always told the truth. Hybrids have existed before, but their records were erased. Why? Because that truth threatens the foundation of our war. As Yulari spoke, Kaylin displayed long-buried archives, ancient scrolls, classified documents, genetic data too precise to deny. Marcus stepped beside her, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. We are calling for an immediate ceasefire, he said. No one here wants to destroy a species that may in fact be our natural evolutionary partner. Kaylin added, we propose an emergency peace summit led by scientists, leaders, thinkers from both sides. Let science, not fear or dogma, guide our next step. When the broadcast ended, they stood in silence. They had given everything. Now, they could only wait. The reaction was immediate. Earth's media exploded with debates. Some called it a hoax. Others branded Yllari a traitor, but voices of support surged as well. Scientists, philosophers, even spiritual leaders saw hope in this unborn child. The Serathi response was more volatile. Nexus, their AI core, validated the data. The council couldn't dismiss it. A temporary ceasefire was issued. The fleet paused, waiting. "They're listening," Yllari whispered. Watching the live feed from the Serathi network, Kaelin had cracked. 48 hours later, a signal came through from the Serathi command ship, Supreme Commander Vexus. Expression unreadable. Voice gravelly and cold. "I request a meeting with Yllari alone." It could be a trap. Marcus warned they might want to dissect you or erase the evidence. Yllari shook her head. Vexus is ruthless, but he's not stupid. He knows if anything happens to me, Earth will never forgive them. "I won't let you go alone," Marcus said firmly. "Me neither," Kaelin added. It's time the Serathi met their forgotten son. The meeting was held aboard a neutral ship, an old Terran space station, now reactivated. Yllari, Marcus, and Kaelin arrived first. Tension hung thick in the air. When Vexus entered with 2 council members in tow, everything fell silent. His eyes found Yllari first, then locked onto Kaelin and stayed there. "So, it's true," he finally said. "We were taught that hybrids were impossible, that species like yours had to be purged." "You were taught a lie," Kaelin said, stepping forward. "A lie crafted to justify genocide." "We reviewed your data," said another council member, Dr. Cora. "We accessed sealed archives. There were hybrids. Why were they erased? Because the truth threatened power." Yllari answered instinctively, shielding her belly. "If the Serathi knew we could blend with other species, your holy war would lose its reason to exist." Marcus stepped up. "You don't have to abandon your identity or pride. But maybe it's time to expand your definition of who deserves to exist. Maybe diversity isn't weakness. Maybe it's strength." Vexus stared long and hard at Marcus, then turned to Yllari. "You're willing to betray your species for this man and that child." Yllari met his gaze, strong, unflinching. "I'm not betraying Serathi. I'm offering them the chance to evolve, to become something better. A civilization strong enough to admit it doesn't have all the answers." A heavy silence followed. Then suddenly Yllari's unborn child kicked. The motion was visible beneath her clothing, subtle but undeniable. It sent a ripple through the room. Vexus inhaled, his composure wavered. "We'll need time to discuss," he said, then turned and left with the delegation. 3 days later, the announcement came. The war between Earth and Serathi would pause, a peace summit would be convened, and more importantly, a joint research initiative would be launched to study the phenomenon of biological translation and its implications for the future. 1 month later, Yllari gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Pale silver skin, deep ocean blue eyes. They named her Lyra, a name shared between both cultures. When Lyra turned 1 month old, a special ceremony was held at the newly established Interplanetary Research Center. She was formally recognized as the child of 2 worlds, a living symbol of hope and of what could be. Standing on the stage, Marcus beside her, Lyra in her arms, Yllari looked out over a crowd of both humans and Serathi. She remembered the day she first stepped aboard the Earthship, convinced to it. She was there to infiltrate and destroy, convinced humanity didn't deserve to survive. Now she knew better. Her true mission wasn't destruction, it was revelation and evolution. "The Serathi sent me as a weapon," she told the crowd. Her voice filled with emotion, but I returned as a bridge. Sometimes, the truest loyalty is daring to defy a command in service of a greater truth. Above them, Serathi warships and Earth satellites orbited in silent harmony, not as enemies, but as co-guardians of a future reborn. And in the center of it all, Lyra, half human, half Serathi, smiled at the world, unaware that by simply being born, she had changed the destiny of 2 civilizations and lit the way for a new age of peace. And that's how a single hybrid child changed the fate of 2 civilizations, not through weapons or war, but through the sheer miracle of her existence. The story of Yllari and Marcus isn't just about a love that crossed galaxies. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest truths are the ones hidden in plain sight. If you were drawn into this story, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Tales where science fiction meets the deepest threads of love and identity. What do you think of this ending? Can humans and aliens truly live in peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments and share this video with your fellow sci-fi fans. We'll see you in the next story where imagination collides with the endless possibilities of the universe.